What's in your wallet?
I'm so old.
I'm going to give it a 1 out of 5 explosive hot dog carts.
Ritualistic blood magic.
Laser shooting chesty statues.
Don't watch movies unless we tell you to. Welcome to Movies with My Best Friend Phil, a movie podcast for flies. I'm your host, Phil Kessel. No, it's not for flies. I actually don't like flies. They're kind of the worst. Movie podcast for science. That's what it is. It's a movie podcast about science. For science, about science, done with science. I'm your host, Phil Kessel. Dr. Phil Kessel. Dr. Phil. Nope, don't like it.
Don't like it.
Joined by, you know him, you love him, Craig Norland.
Hey, Phil, do you hear something?
Yeah, it sounds like a lightsaber moving around a lot.
Oh yeah, it is actually. I'm playing with my lightsaber right now.
Yeah,
I thought it was a fly with a lightsaber.
Oh yeah, could have been that.
Yeah, I think a fly with a lightsaber would be a really bad thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be able to hold it, so it wouldn't really work.
Well, I'm imagining like a fly-sized lightsaber.
Even then.
Oh, this is Will Chodas, by the way.
Oh, hey,
Hello.
everybody. No, but even then, it doesn't have fingers, so it'd be like.
Yeah, but they got like sticky hands.
Yeah, but they can just rub their hands together. They'd turn it on, step on it, cut their own foot off, and be like, "Well, I don't like this."
George Lucas had a rough drawing of a human-sized fly man with a lightsaber. Like, it happened. Have you seen some of his other stuff? It's weird as hell.
But I'm imagining.
Look at Plo Koon. Plo Koon's my dog, but that is one gnarly-looking alien.
Yeah.
Wow, you heard it here first, everyone. Craig's alien racist.
I don't even know what race Plo Koon is.
You know what's crazy about Plo Koon? Most of his face that you see isn't his face. He's wearing a mask because he can't, over his eyes and his mouth, because he can't
breathe out of his eyes.
Because he lives in a sulfur-rich planet, and if he took it off, he'd die. You
know what I bet Craig would say to that? That he should go back to his own planet if he can't live here.
That's true.
You know what else? You know what else would cause him to die? Getting shot down in a ship. Too soon.
Oh, always too soon for a
horse out there. Plo Koon.
Hey, he was my main Jedi power battles.
Same. He was way too slow though. Yeah.
Yeah, but he was powerful. He had that orange lightsaber.
Yep.
Is he the only one with an orange lightsaber? Or is there like a bunch of people now? I'm so far out of the Star Wars canon at this point.
Well, they changed it in the movie because like George Lucas was like, I don't know, he just had it so that everyone that was the most disappointing thing about like when all the Jedis brought out their lightsabers in the Clone Wars, and that movie is riddled with very disappointing things. Is that everyone turned their lightsabers on and they were all just blue and green, and it was just sort of like, oh. I was hoping for like a big rainbow of like all these different colors, And Mace Windu had purple, which was neat, but it was like he was the only one.
That's because Samuel L. Jackson asked for it.
Yeah, he did. He said, "I'll do it if I can get a different color."
George Lucas caved because he's afraid of Samuel L. Jackson.
I just don't understand.
That's my headcanon. I don't know if that's true.
Just felt like so many other colors would have been fun,
Yeah, like blue.
Yeah, or like even darker blue.
Oh, or like a green.
Yeah, or even like a darker green.
What about red, but it's for good guys?
Yeah, like maroon.
Oh, yeah.
There was the girl in Jedi Power Battles had a maroon lightsaber, and I was like, oh, that's red, though.
What about black? That would be like the coolest.
I think doesn't...
the dark saber.
There's a dark saber in The Mandalorian. Yeah, it is black.
I'm very far away from Star Wars canon.
Same. I think that was one of the last things I saw. No, the last thing I saw was when Luke Skywalker showed up, and the end of the second, spoiler alert, for the second season of The Mandalorian. Oops.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
It's like one of the coolest scenes in all of Star Wars.
Nice. Guys, speaking of Star Wars.
Uh-huh.
They shit, what kind of money do they have?
Credits.
Credits. They have credits. Listen, I'm so far. I cannot stress this enough. I'm so far out of Star Wars canon.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the first one, but whatever.
Well, yeah, it's just been a very long time. Anyways, they have credits.
Yeah.
Credits that you buy stuff with.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And they have ostensibly a lightsaber that's tiny, like a tiny pocket knife version of a lightsaber. And this would be like part of like a Jedi's everyday carry that they'd post YouTube videos about.
Oh, good Lord.
So they'd have like their credits in a thing, and then they'd have their like pocket knife lightsaber in a thing, and then they'd probably have like, I don't know, mints, or like other, what's another like incel Jedi thing that they'd carry every day? I don't know.
I'm sorry, you talking?
Yeah. Will, I'm always talking. Craig disappeared.
Yeah, Craig can't handle this.
I think I may have broken him this time.
Is it
It's
a
a
wallet?
Yeah.
That's right. It's a segment where we reach deep into our best friend's pants and whip out some recommendations. It's What's in Your Wallet? All right, Craig, because you don't like talking, why don't you go first?
Yeah, that's me. I already mentioned last week that I was playing Dave the Diver. I'm playing it with Pete. It's really fun. I finished it today, but they have a Godzilla expansion to it, and I'm really excited to see what that is.
What?
Yeah.
Like
Cool.
you are Godzilla, or you're fishing for Godzilla?
I don't know.
You're probably fishing with Godzilla and whatever that weird tiny Godzilla with wings from the Godzilla cartoon, whose name was like Gazoinsberg or something. Anybody else know what I'm talking? His name was like Gazorpazorp or something.
You know, you turn into Manila, and the whole thing's about him now.
All right, I'm gonna look it up.
Would you say gazoink gazoink? I'm gonna Google that.
That sounds like a Jerry Lewis exclamation.
It just came up with kazooing. And
And
not even like an actual definition. The first thing that came up was Urban Dictionary.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Hanna-Barbera.
I don't want to know.
What was that dude's name? Godzuki. That was pretty close.
Oh, yeah, Godzuki.
Surprisingly close, honestly. Given no offense, your track record on names of movies, characters in movies we've literally just watched, that was really good.
That's pretty close. Yeah, Godzuki. He flew. They. Who gives a shit? Greg,
yeah.
what, you're still going? Yeah.
I'm still doing something.
What's your actual recommendation?
Yeah, I know.
Not your pre-recommendation or your post-recommendation secret recommendation. Just give me the meat of it.
I know. I do too many things. I'm sorry.
No, never. Hey, look me in the eyes right now, sir. Never apologize to me.
To you
My
specifically.
best friend.
Okay.
Yeah, apologize to other people. I don't give a shit.
What about Will? I don't really want to do that.
Nobody apologizes to me.
Okay, good.
So
I'm glad the track
Sorry, what was
records.
that?
Yeah.
Craig, go ahead.
Yeah. So I saw quite a few movies recently that I actually really liked. Mad Max 2, Road Warrior was great. I hadn't seen it before.
Yeah, that's the one.
That is the one. And it's fun watching that and watching Fury Road, just kind of seeing some of the similarities. It's definitely, you don't need to see the first one because they recap it pretty concisely in the first like 5 minutes.
Nice.
And the first one's terrible. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
So weird to me that George R.R. Martin did that and Game of Thrones.
Interesting.
Yeah. I'm not going to address that at all. Phil, is your new job here just to say whatever bullshit?
What do you mean new job? Have you ever listened to our show? I bring nothing to the table but goofs.
I know for a fact neither one of you listen to the show, so...
Hey, I have been listening to the show.
Okay.
As of the last 2 episodes.
Oh, well, congratulations. You're about 135 behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Craig, continue.
Okay, so that's a great movie. I also watched a horror movie that came out, I think, about maybe 2 years ago. Stop motion is what it's called. I don't know if either of you heard of this.
Aw.
It's about a girl who is the daughter of a very famous stop motion animation artist, but her mom has what do you call it? When you can't use your hands anymore.
Arthritis?
Not arthritis.
Super arthritis?
Anyway, she can't use her
Laziness?
hands.
Handitis.
Handitis, yeah. So the daughter has to do this last project for her, and the mom's really demanding and not very nice to her. And she kind of wants to do her own thing, have her own project, and then her mom becomes ill, and so she feels guilty about the whole thing. And but she starts doing her own thing, and it is one of those movies where you really never know when what's real and what's not, just because you can see that the person's sanity is slowly deteriorating, and so parts of the story she's making become real, start affecting her own world, and she's similar to the movie that we're going to talk about today. It's about the obsession with what your legacy is. In this case, trying to step out from behind someone else's shadow. So I don't think it's a perfect film, but I think it's definitely a really interesting one. It's some really nice stop motion effects in there. And yeah, check that out.
Cool.
Hell yeah. That sounds good. Is it okay? You said it was horror. Is it like
Psychological
unsettling vibes horror, or like spooky jumps at you horror, or a little of both?
No, it's more unsettling and a little bit
that's-
like kind of not explicitly gory, but it's definitely a little bit of body horror in there. So a little bit
man.
like Cronenberg light on this one.
You're
So
speaking my language.
yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I've only seen one Cronenberg movie, but I feel like I get you, Craig, and I feel like what you're describing sounds like something I would like.
I think you'd at least think it was worth watching.
Yeah. Will?
Yeah, what's up?
Wait, did you want me to not call on you?
No, you can call on me. It's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
I'm good with
Would
that.
you come up to the class and explain
okay.
your show and tell?
Okay. I have notes. I hope that's okay. Because I can't. I'm not off book yet.
Yeah, that's fine.
These
don't
are upside
call for
down.
a line.
I can't use these. No. What am I up to? I recently had a birthday not too long ago, so naturally, I went onto the Switch store and bought everything that was on sale on my wish list as a happy birthday to me.
Hell yeah!
That was
That
on
is a
sale.
good ass birthday present.
So I just I
Does
was like,
your
okay,
wife know about this?
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm gonna spend tops $40. How many games can I get for $40? The answer is 5.
Nice. That's an average of $8 a game. That's pretty good.
Well, I bought one of the things I bought was the Persona bundle for Persona 3 and 4. So I've been playing through Persona 3 Portable, which is a PSP remake of a PlayStation 2 game, and basically the first Persona game, so it's weird because Persona is actually a spin-off of another series called Shin Megami Tensei or something. I've never played any of those. And the first two Personas were okay, but nobody ever talks about them anymore. And then when Persona 3 came out, that basically was when it became a big... I never played them in the PlayStation 2 day. I didn't even know about them until Get Played did an episode on Persona 5, and they started describing it. I'm like, well, this sounds right up my alley. So this is kind of...
Will, I gotta say though, I can tell already you bought 5 games for $40 that none of them were mainline Nintendo games, because the lowest they go is $45.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and if I want to play one of those, I'm just gonna borrow yours. What am I, an idiot? Like, come on.
Yeah, that's true.
No, you're not gonna play these obscure JRPGs that I picked up. No, I need to buy those on my own.
Yep.
Shoot, what was I saying? Oh yeah, so Persona 3 is a lot like Persona 5. Obviously it is a PSP game ported, so it's not like, as graphically fun, but it's almost the exact same game in a lot of ways. And what I really like about it is so I realized, like, as a kid, I just loved the sort of teenage superhero who lived that secret life where he was like Animorphs or Spider-Man, and what Persona 3 and the Persona games do that, like, other superhero type games don't do is, like, it balances the sort of, like, high school life and the superhero life really well. So, like, you make friends and you go to class and you build up. You have like a academics bar. So, like, the more you do academic stuff, the higher the bar gets, which means you can then go do other things that require high academics or high charm or high whatever. Mm-hmm. And then you also have social links. So you go and you hang out with your friends. And if you kind of like do like, it's like basically a graphic novel in a lot of ways, or what's the word? Interactive novel, playable novel, it's something like that.
Yeah, Leapfrog.
Yeah, right. So you do a lot of that stuff, and that allows you to boost up your social links, and then when you create your personas, you get bonuses if those are higher, and you choose where to go. So, like, you can spend all of your time with this one person, and that will boost the stats in other places. So. I just like love that that's there, and it's also like it's very menu based as well. Like, so, like, when you're playing when you're doing the battling part of it, like the superhero part of it, you control the character, you run around, you fight monsters, but the rest of the time it's sort of like menu based, so it moves very fast, and it's just like you just watch the numbers go up. I don't know. I'm like, this is exactly my favorite thing. And the personas are really weird because it's sort of like Pokemon in the sense that you have different personas that you use during battle, and you only use one at a time, but they're very much locked to a level. So, like, in Pokemon, you might pick up a low-level Pokemon and then level it up and it evolves, and you might stick with it the whole time. You might drop it off. Mm-hmm. This game, you definitely... You don't. If you stayed with the same starting personas, you're an idiot because they don't, like, you know what I mean? They don't, like, level up in that way.
Oh, okay.
Are you saying I'm dumb for having a Pidgeot and Eradicate in my Pokemon party?
Wait, is it more like you're saying I'm dumb if I have the same personality I did in high school?
That's what I'm saying. Yes, Phil's correct. Okay. Craig, no. But no, you just like combine them, and then when you combine them, they turn into more powerful ones. And if you have more social links, so if you spend time making more friends, they'll level up when you build them. So it's just fun, and all the personas are based off of like real mythical characters from like all across mythology. So like
Bigfoot.
No, that's more like cryptids. But maybe actually Mothman.
Oh, Paul Bunyan?
Mothman is one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
But yeah, so there you go. No, it's just like it'll just be like characters from Japanese folklore or Egypt.
Is there a Tanuki?
There might be. I don't know. I haven't seen them all, but I mean that would be awesome. But
that would be really cool.
Yeah. So if anyone out there, this recommendation again, because it's mine, is for nobody. And I'm pretty sure my older brother Mike, who again is probably the only person I know who would like my recommendations. I think he played Persona 5 and didn't finish it, so this isn't even for him, which I feel like I've said like the last 6 times I've recommended a JRPG, so who knows?
You gotta join a JRPG club.
I don't like the people who like JRPGs.
Yeah, that's how it goes, isn't it?
It's really hard to have a conversation with. I mean, I think it's different. It's like sort of like why I think I didn't play D&D for so long is because like every time I went to go like get near somebody who was playing D&D, I was like, I really don't like you because you're so like you're like aggressively nerdy, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, I have a lot more jock tendencies than I'd like to admit, and I was like, I'm just going to shove you in a locker, and that would be no good for us. So, but it's changed, so who knows?
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah,
I feel that.
Phil, what you got in your Wailert?
Yeah. Before I go with mine, I do have a quick question for you guys.
Okay.
Do you like science?
Eh.
You know,
I'm on the wrong podcast.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a creationist, so like, it's really, you know, it's
really against what you.
Yeah, I just feel like
in.
believing in science is too much of a cult, you know, because they all feel like they have to believe the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, and there's like no changing their doctrine. So I like more soft ideas like theology.
Yeah, man, I have the YouTube channels for you. This is sort of a double whammy from me, not from Craig. Okay, so I have been on a space kick lately, learning about space, reading about space.
You sound like my
getting
4-year-old.
I mean, have you met me? My interests match that of a 4-year-old sometimes. Also, my excitement for things sometimes matches that of a 4-year-old. Have concerns about it. Anyways, so there's a YouTube channel called PBS Space Time.
Okay, you really are my 4-year-old.
PBS Kids Space Time.
It's not kids. But so PBS Space Time is a little bit higher level knowledge than I am, even sort of like I'm a person who likes science. But some of this stuff is like well above my brain hole. But it goes into like a lot of space science. I'm going to read you a couple of titles. What if gravity is not a fundamental force? Let's see. What if singularities do not exist? Dark forest. Should we not contact aliens? So it's a bunch of videos about space, and it's a guy who's just explaining like big concepts.
Fun.
In like a relatively simple way. And it is a really cool YouTube channel. I feel like I've been learning a lot, getting my brain blown wide open, having some real good cosmic not disassociation. What's the existentialism? Little cosmic existentialism, no big deal. The other one is a little more visually friendly, because it's not just a guy explaining it with like math on the screen. It's Kurzgesagt, in a nutshell. Mike had sent it in the text. I've been like on and off of this channel for a very long time, but I've been on a huge kick lately. They have it's these like really cool illustrations and sort of animated videos about space and science in general. The ones I've been watching mostly have been about space, but they have like, what happens if you destroy a black hole? And there's like a cool animated video that goes along with it. And it just goes into like a lot of these scientific concepts that, you know, I wasn't fully versed in. And now I'm like, ooh, man, I should have done science in school and not soft science. I should have done harder science.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Phil,
yeah.
Yeah. Veronica and I just finished 3 Body Problem. On Netflix. If you haven't started watching that, I'd recommend that.
Yeah.
Speaking of contacting aliens.
Yeah, I really got to get on that one. I got my dad the first of it's a trilogy. I got him the first of the trilogy like a couple of years ago for Christmas. And he read it. I think he didn't realize it was a trilogy, and then he went to watch the show and was like, oh shit, it's a trilogy. There's more book.
Yeah, there's definitely more to it.
But yeah, no, I really got to get on that one, because that one I think is like right up my alley in terms of like what I've heard is that it like doesn't really hold your hand, and it kind of just like jumps you into lots of science.
There's a lot of science talking, which is like I appreciate Andy Weir with like The Martian and Hail Mary, Project Hail Mary, just because he doesn't really dumb it down, but I still kind of understand what's happening, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I've never been a huge science person, but I still like I like science fiction. I appreciate science museums, and I can find things that are very interesting to me. But I've never been like huge into aliens like some people.
Well, that's not really science, if you ask me. But
I
sure.
know, but you know what I mean. Like
it's like a mathematical certainty.
Sure, but it's not. But if you say you're into aliens, that you're not.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah. Saying you're a scientist and saying also like I'm obsessed with aliens, you're like, okay, wait.
yeah. That's
so
fair enough.
Yeah, no, I am a science guy. I find I find I've always liked shows that had like mine were always animal shows, you know.
Ooh,
so like
yeah.
I love watching Wild Kratts with Jack, and I will always just like they'll say an animal fact, and I'll just turn to Jack and be like, I knew that. I did. I knew that before he said. I was going to say that, but then I did. I knew that. And Jack's just like shush, you know.
Yeah.
But,
Dad, I'm watching my show.
Yeah, no, I
off.
like last night, like we were eating, we had like salads, and we were talking about like vegetables, and I was just like, technically, vegetable is like a culinary term. There's actually no scientific names, like vegetable isn't a real category. And I just pissed off everybody at the table for the rest of the dinner, as everyone just kept going like, what about that? Well, that's a fruit. It is like, a pepper is a fruit. And then it just became like a funny conversation, because it was sort of like Jack felt like I was gaslighting him, but I was just telling him the truth. And Caitlin I was like, I don't know.
You'll find out someday that is mostly childhood.
Yeah, but I'm
Either
like,
you're being gaslit or you feel like you're being gaslit.
Yeah, he's like, well, what's a potato then? I'm like, it's a root.
Will, you really wheeled up that conversation.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. Okay. Well, perfect.
But what I do like is when science crosses with obsession and people who want to be God. Frankenstein. Many other examples that I can't think of course. Jekyll and Hyde.
Yep.
Basically, science gone wrong is very interesting to me. I love that kind of those kind of stories, and that feeds into our movie today.
Speaking of science gone wrong, we watched The Fly. The 1986 version, which is the remake, right? Yes.
Technically not a remake, but yeah.
Oh, okay. So, The Fly is a 1986 American science fiction horror film directed and co-written by David Cronenberg. It is starring basically only 3 people. Jeff Goldblum, Gina Davis, and John Getz. 96 minutes long. What I saw was that the budget was somewhere between $9 million and $15 million, which is very large accounting error, but sure. And it made $60 million. The log line on IMDb is a brilliant but eccentric scientist begins to transform into a giant man-fly hybrid after one of his experiments goes horribly wrong. How do you think this movie is doing on Rotten Tomatoes?
100%.
Okay. Craig?
I'll go with 90%.
Craig has it 93.
Oh.
Yeah. With an 83 audience score.
Wow, the audience is dumb.
Yeah, I thought, well, they probably didn't like the gross stuff. So
Yeah.
I picked this movie. Because it's been on my list of like movies I've been meaning to see. This is like one of my. I feel like lately I've been doing like movies I missed when they first, because I wasn't born in the right era or whatever. And I also realized that I had never seen like Jeff Goldblum in an earlier movie earlier than Jurassic Park, and I don't think I've ever seen him as a lead.
He's, Will, was it you I talked to about this, where he's
possibly
almost never a lead? Like
Yeah,
3 films, he's the
yeah.
lead.
Always a bridesmaid, never a bride. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Sean's
It's
awake.
Lost World, Night Moves, and
Oh yeah,
this.
Lost World. He is the lead in that. Yeah, and I've heard it was really really gross, and I was like, okay, it's one of those movies that like I would have totally avoided as a kid because I couldn't stomach anything gross, and I didn't like horror at all. So I wanted to see it, and I think Phil, you mentioned something about it last episode.
It's funny because I was just re-listening to it. Craig was talking about a set of movies. We were talking about Invasion of the Body Snatchers,
Yeah.
and he was like, "Oh yeah, another one is The Fly."
Yeah.
And I was listening to that. I was like, "Oh shit!" It's like he knew.
Well,
It's like he knew.
Yeah. So yeah. Phil, had you seen this movie before?
I had not.
Craig, I know you had.
I think it's one of those ones like there are so many of those classics I haven't seen, and there are so many like we've talked about it 1,000,001 times where like there are so many of those movies where you've seen the quote of the movie.
Yeah.
Like you've seen other movies doing riffs on it so many times you're like, I don't really need to see it.
Right.
Because like I get it. I kind of mostly saw it. This was one of those movies for me where like I've seen this bit done in so many other things, and then we finally watched the movie and
You understand why everyone copied it, right?
yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, right. So I had not seen this either. I already said that. Don't know why I repeated it, but I was under the impression that you watch this movie if you like gross stuff. You know what I mean? But so and you do because this movie is gross.
Oh,
but
horrifically
I
gross.
I was like this is kind of one of those like near perfect movie. It's like it is exactly the right length of a movie. It is the right use of the movie genre in the sense that it is a short story and it has very little characters. It has a very simple premise. It executes it very well. And yeah, it's just like really well done. I was really surprised. I was expecting to think to think the rest of it was just going to be blah and only be there for the grossness,
Yeah, I was kind of expecting like a very B movie that people liked as a cult classic because it was really gross.
Yeah, I did something new in a new way or something. But this, I when it was over, I was like, this movie feels like it was a late 18th century novel or something. It feels like it's from that era when like science was like really picking up and we just started like figuring out electricity and like people were standing around going like, wait a minute, if we can do electricity, if we can make light come inside, you know what I mean? If we can harness lightning, what the hell else can we do? And like things like Frankenstein and all that kind of came out with a mad scientist. This is a movie about a likable mad scientist who screws up his life on his own hubris. And I really enjoyed his character's journey. Craig, how did you feel about this on your third or whatever watch?
So I don't remember when I first saw this movie. It might have been about, could have been 10 years ago at this point, but it was one of those movies too where I knew about it, but it was one of those things too where like Cronenberg was a scary director.
Yeah.
You like if you're going to see his movies, it's going to be gross. It's going to be body horror. And so it was either this or Videodrome were my first of his movies.
Also him?
Yeah, I want to watch that.
So, yeah, he like the 80s for him were like great output because he has Scanners. That's the famous head explosion.
Is it because of all the coke?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
But if you've seen this, the effect of this guy's head exploding before, and talking about special effects, that's Scanners. That's like the most famous part of that whole movie. And then you have The Fly, and Dead Ringers is also very good. So Videodrome is... I'd have to see Videodrome again, because I remember liking it, but it is very weird.
Do you see James Woods' butt or his front? Or both?
I think
That's
it's
the only
just
thing I know about the movie.
Yeah, I think
That
it's
and
just
there's
his...
a TV.
Yeah, there's a TV.
TV and a butt.
Yeah, surprisingly, The Fly is his most like appropriate movie, like audience friendly, which seems crazy, but it really is. Because all of his other movies are pretty out there in terms of they're just gross in other ways. It's hard to describe. There's usually like a shadowy government agency at work. There's always this extra layer to things. But yeah, anyway, getting to the actual movie, sorry. I really love this movie just because, like you said, it's nice that it's simplified. Will and I talked about, mostly Will talking at me, that he liked
That's the
how
only
there
way
wasn't...
I'll have it, you know?
Yep. There wasn't an extra layer of like, there's a detective who's trying to figure out what's happening, or there's the university who's trying to figure out what's happening with this.
Yes, it is.
Like,
it is very.
Let me
contained.
check in.
Yes.
Yeah, let me check in on the project, what's happening here, and there's none of that. It's very simplified, and it's pretty refreshing because of that. And the characters, the three characters, when you try to label anyone as either the hero or the villain, it's hard to come up with who that is because each character goes through their own arc. Whereas,
I mean, John Getz's character is definitely a bad person.
He's a bad person
who ends up doing good things. Yes,
and in the end, he's like, at one point when he shows up at the end, I'm like, wait a minute, am I rooting for this guy? I don't want to root for this guy.
That's like I kept saying to Jack. She was sitting next to me. I was like, oh, this guy sucks. I don't want him to be the hero.
I don't want him to win. And then when
that is a cool thing.
He gets really f***ed up at the end too.
Oh, he gets fucked. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, ooh, now I just feel sorry for him because that is a rough. Yeah. Anyways,
no bueno.
And Ronnie, Veronica, I'll just call her Ronnie from now on.
Gina Davis's character.
This is Gina Davis's character. Even at the beginning, she's the one you feel the worst for because she is just put through the ringer in this movie. Because she's not only abused by Getz's character, because it's her boss, but it's also her former lover. But even who this new scientist who she starts a relationship with goes from a very well-meaning man to basically a monster, even before he turns into a literal one.
Oh, yeah.
And but even at the beginning, she is ready to throw him and his project completely under the bus for her own her own career.
So for those of you who haven't watched the movie, I'm going to do a little brief plot summary. So the movie opens like at a weird gala, and Gina Davis and Jeff Goldblum's characters are meeting, and he's basically trying to get her. He's trying to entice her romantically into hanging out with her, and she's trying to get a story. So there's like kind of a miscommunication. Anyways, but they go to his place. And he basically reveals to her that he has invented teleportation. He's figured out how to move something from one place to the other. And she then decides she's going to tell that she's going to write an article. And he's like, it's like this weird, like, I was like, you're kind of dumb. Jeff Goldblum's character. What did you think was happening? So anyways, and so we find out by following Gina Davis's character for a little bit that her editor is her ex-boyfriend who likes to just stop by and take a shower in her apartment when she's not home, which is the reddest of red flags of
I mean,
and
this guy is
maybe a
the
felony.
slimiest 80s slime ball.
Oh yeah, he's the worst. Anyways, and so Gina Davis or Jeff Goldblum basically tells Gina Davis's character, look, don't make this don't write this article. write a book about this. I'll give you the book rights to this if you hold off because it's not ready yet, because he hasn't figured out how to make organic material go through. And so basically, he starts doing experiments with her around, and then they actually do kind of fall in love and start a romantic relationship. And he murders a bunch of baboons, which maybe
he murders one baboon.
Murders one baboon.
You don't know how many baboons he's murdered.
That's
you don't know.
fair.
Also, why a baboon? Of all the things in all the worlds. Also, he corrects her when she calls it a monkey. She's like, "You killed the monkey," and he's like, "It's a baboon. Monkeys are baboons, you idiot." Sorry. They're not apes. They got tails. They're monkeys. Anyways.
Fair.
This is why nobody likes watching Wildcrats with me.
But he is not a zoologist. I don't know what kind of science he does.
So I read a bit of trivia about that baboon, and it was like, they were like, yeah, basically you can't train them. So like they were just wild animals on set. And because Jeff Goldblum was so tall and so imposing, they saw him as an alpha male, but they wouldn't let anybody else go near them. So like he just like, I think he like physically restrained one at the very beginning because it was, and they saw that he was stronger than them, and so they trusted him after that, I guess. I don't know, but that's just like, so weird. It's like, yeah, you didn't.
He also did that to
baboons.
Gina Davis. It was really weird.
They were dating at the time, which I just found out.
They were dating before. Jeff Goldblum brought her in. I read trivia that said that he basically said like, "Oh, we need a female lead. Why not Gina, my girlfriend? She's great." And Cronenberg's like, that's a terrible idea. And then he brought her in, and he's like, "Well, it's her. Okay, she did great."
Yeah.
Anyways, so he does finally figure out how to move organic material by, I can't remember. He's like, I forgot. I'm not thinking of the flesh. It's like one of the grossest like epiphanies from a mad scientist I've ever heard. He just keeps saying the word flesh over and over and over again. And I didn't care for it.
It's like the passion of the flesh or something really gross like that.
Yeah, and it was just like, whatever.
The poetry of the steak.
Yeah, it was like the poetry of the flesh and stuff like that. Poetry of the steak. Anywho, so he figures out how to make the baboon move, teleport rather. And then right at that time, Gina Davis discovers that Creepy McCreepersons is going to go ahead and move forward with the article. So she basically says, "I have to leave," and so she goes and to go talk to the editor, which Jeff Goldblum then pieces together like that they had a past relationship, and so he thinks that she's going to go sleep with him, and he gets drunk and makes the very dumb decision of doing the experiment where he's going to teleport himself by himself. And unbeknownst to him, when he teleports himself plus a fly. And that's when the fun begins. Plus the fly.
Yeah. Get that right.
Yeah. Anyways, she comes back. She's like, "Yes, that was my ex-boyfriend, but I'm not with him anymore, and so all is forgiven. By the way, I teleported myself, and it worked." And then like the next couple days, he's becoming a really physically fit and turning into an asshole and growing gross hairs on his back.
And eating an obscene amount of sugar.
Eating a gross amount of sugar. And basically their relationship deteriorates because he's acting crazy. And lo and behold, the reason why he's acting crazy is because he didn't teleport with the fly. His genes got spliced with the fly.
Because computers are dumb. They only do what you tell them. And so the computer's like, huh?
They didn't have our beautiful AI to work with that we have now.
So that's essentially when he starts becoming the fly. And I really enjoyed his transformation because, one, it was gross and hard to look at. But he calls her later and he's like really scared. And he's like, "I don't know. I'm dying. I have like a cancer. I'm dying." And he's like really gross looking. But then the next time she sees him, he's like climbing on the walls and is like excited about it. Do you know what I mean? He's like, "Look, I'm really good at this now. Isn't this interesting?" You know, and it's sort of like that's where the sense of dread comes from, because you're like watching his body fall apart as his ears are falling off and stuff. And you're sort of like, oh no, I know where this is going. He's going to turn into a monster. But like, if you were watching somebody do this, you wouldn't like just give up hope immediately, which is what Gina Davis doesn't do, you know?
Right.
Will would have given up hope as soon as he pulled off one of his fingernails.
Yeah, I would have shot him right then and there. I was like, you got to
not like that. Why is it always fingernails?
I
I do it in
Uh,
District 9 as well. I don't
Um,
like it. There's
I-
teeth and fingernails coming out in that. I didn't
Yeah.
like it in that. I didn't like it in this.
Yeah, I do like when he after he pulled his fingernails off, he sat down on the bed and he's like, wait, am I dying? Is this what dying is like? Is this how people die? And I just was like, that was the most human reaction, because that's probably what I would do. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's well, you talked about him being scared, and then all of a sudden he becomes fascinated with what's happening to him. It's like a person who is getting a disease that has never been had by anyone before.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, and they're the person who's been trying to study this and find it, and they're the ones who unfortunately is the first sufferer. And so they're, you know, it's a scary thing, but also they're like, I get to write down what's happening to me. This is great.
Yeah. When he's like losing his teeth and pulling off his fingers and shit, and he's just like placing them, and he's like, oh, it's like a little museum
It's
of
a little museum of Seth Brundle.
it's what Brundle used to be before he was Brundle fly.
Yeah,
You know?
he pulls out he starts pulling out his teeth. He's like, oh yeah, his vestigial teeth. Like, we don't need these. I don't need these anymore. And it's like ancient technology. And it's just like he's very much being a scientist about
Yes.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
You had mentioned Gina Davis's character like not giving up on him.
Yeah.
I had written down that like she just displays such a like massive amount of empathy
Yeah.
Yeah.
for Seth. like they had actually fallen in love. She really loves this guy, and this horrible thing is happening to him, and she keeps going. When like we, the viewer, haven't really like fallen in love with him because
Yeah.
it's a movie and we've only had 40 minutes up until
And
this point.
he's actually quite
He's-
off-putting.
He's
Even when
so
he's
off-putting.
yeah, when
she
he's a
keeps
normal
coming
guy.
back, and she hugs him and gets close to him when he's like
Yeah.
His ears
oozy
falling
and
off.
gross, and his
Yeah.
ears fall. Yeah, his ear falls off, and she goes and hugs him on that side.
Mhm.
So-
It's so gross.
Okay, I'm sorry. One of my favorite scenes are like in that middle section when Gina Davis gets mad at him and walks out, and then he's like, I'm gonna go find someone who will appreciate me. And so he grabs some random I walked out at this point, I'm sorry. It was a random girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, at a bar.
And so the best part was coming down, and then it was the arm wrestling scene, because I knew it was going to happen. Will did not.
Oh man.
I mean, I kind of knew it was going to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, when he breaks that guy's arm and the bone comes out, I wasn't expecting it to be that gory. And of course, I did my usual thing, which was. And,
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about what happens next while he's turning into the fly, which to me is what made me go, wait, is this an amazing movie? Is Gina Davis's character
Mhm.
finds out
Mhm.
she's pregnant
Uh-huh.
with
Mhm.
Seth's
Uh-huh.
baby, and
Yep.
suddenly the movie turned from just like a weird sort of like science body horror thing to a pro-choice movie in like the best, like it was
Yes.
such, because she's like, what do I do? I'm pregnant with a man. There's a great chance that he impregnated me while he was what's it, Brady fly or whatever?
Brundlefly.
Brundle, while he was Brundlefly, there's like a monster inside of me. I need it out. And I was just like, this is the most empathetic sort of like, but using science fiction, like
Yes.
pro-abortion move, not abortion, but pro-choice movie
Yes.
to show, because she's like, I love this man, but there's a good chance I have a fly baby inside of me. And
Yeah.
I wrote down that abortion dream sequence was entirely uncalled for because I didn't like watching it.
So bad.
That to me, that's the most disturbing part of the whole movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, what is happening? And then I just kept going like to Craig. I was like, wait a minute, is this how abortions are? Are they all this horrifying? Like, and then of course she gives birth basically to a giant squirmy wormy. Which, by the way, the doctor that was Cronenberg.
That was Cronenberg.
Yeah.
I saw that at the end. That he was the doctor. I was like, oh,
that's fun.
Nice. Yeah, that scene was horrific. I do also on the same like pro-choice like level when what's her boss's name? Shitbag?
I don't know.
Butthole? Dumb guy? When he takes her to the doctor, they are both like, well, he's not convincing her to not abort it, but the doctor is like, yeah, but like, it's the middle of the night. Do we have to do that? He's like very nonchalantly like, nah, this is my choice.
Yeah. There's a lot of
very.
He gives a lot of pushback, you know.
Yeah, and it's like.
So like kind of like two things, yeah, and it's very typical of like doctors pushing back or people saying like, oh, you'll regret it later, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also like it's using that science fiction lens. So like that character saying that kind of makes sense in the science fiction world because it is the middle of the night, and you're like, why? Yeah. If I was a doctor and they're like, I need an abortion stat, I'd be like, well, you kind of don't.
What?
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we can do it tomorrow.
Stathis is the guy's name.
Stathis.
Stathis Brands, which is
he had the
such a non-name. Because I kept forgetting. I'm like, is Stathis his first or last name? Because
his first name,
it could be either,
Stathis
but it's his first name. Stathis. Game of Thrones ass son name.
Yeah,
affection.
Very much so.
But yeah, anyways, so then of course, like what happens is she goes to get the abortion. Then, well, I guess we've been in Spoiler Town. We left my son left his milk in this car seat, and I didn't know it was there. And we came back 2 days later,
and there was a fly on it.
There,
and there's cheese.
The fly was half human.
Every damn time.
Every time.
I'll learn. Anyways, so but. Yeah, and then he flies in like the Hunchback of Notre Dame or something and steals her away.
That was
like
the exact moment that Will just was like, I can, things have calmed down. He looks down at his phone for a second and then
yeah.
And he jumps a mile. I was like, yeah, this is great. I love this.
Like, what an unnecessary entrance. But yeah, and then it is very interesting because he's like, you're gonna abort it, but it's it's the last bit of Brundle, and you can see her then like not knowing what to do anymore,
Yeah. Yeah, and I think they did such a good job of, and this is I would say partly on Gina Davis. I think it's interesting because this movie I associate with Jeff Goldblum or have associated with Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah,
the whole time I've known this.
I didn't even know she was in it.
This movie is Gina Davis's movie.
Yeah, she's awesome in it.
Absolutely her movie. But they did such a good job, partly on her like acting, of making it seem like she did genuinely fall in love with Seth Brundle.
Yeah, and
like she's really struggling with all of this stuff, and it was so cool to see this movie with her struggling with all this stuff. And sometimes we watch movies, and it's a bias against things that happened before I was born. But like,
yeah,
sometimes I get surprised when there are views and like talking points and like points of view in movies from earlier than like 2005 or 2010 that are like matching something that not would happen now, but like, you know what I mean? Like that portrayal of her is a really good female character.
It is always shocking when a movie isn't hyper fixated on toxic masculinity. You know what I mean? And that's not the main driving force, because like so much of media, I think it was like just for us growing up in the 90s, just felt like it was that's what they were all saying about the past and about now, or I don't know. But so when you rewatch movies like this, and even like Black Christmas, where it was like it's just a bunch of women, you know what I mean? And it's and nobody
also deals with abortion.
Also did it? Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. And it's you're just like, oh yeah, like people have been making the right decision for a very, very long time. You know, it's like you don't consider.
And then when people make excuses, well, like, oh, everyone felt the same way back then. It's like, no, they didn't.
Yeah, like there were plenty of people who were, against slavery since slavery was a thing. You know what I mean? There were plenty of people who were, so you don't hear those as much because they weren't the most loudest voice at the time,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so it also does sort of like kind of like make me reevaluate when I watch like a movie like say Chinatown, and I'm like, well, everyone was shitty then, or something like that,
right? Yeah,
and then
shoot, no,
yeah, maybe we didn't need to tell this story, that kind of stuff.
It's just interesting, and I feel like we keep finding these movies sometimes where I'm just like so surprised to see.
And I wasn't expecting it from this movie.
Modern, I certainly wouldn't have been. I will say this is one of my favorite things about sci-fi is when it can do something like this.
Yeah.
But I do feel like, especially with a creature feature, it doesn't. Creature features, I love them so much, but they are sometimes sort of a more McDonald's of movies, where it's like, it's good, it gets the job done, you enjoy it.
Yeah.
You're not like touting that it's the greatest food you've ever had, and you know what it is.
You're kind of embarrassed that you're there,
Yeah, you're like, I'm enjoying this. I know exactly what it is. I know this isn't good for me. It's just fun, and I'm enjoying it, and that's fine. And really, truly, it is fine. But then you get a movie like this, which is both an incredible creature feature and also just a genuinely good movie with a lot going on that is like really well executed. This was good.
Yeah.
I finished the movie and I was just like, shit, I really enjoyed this.
Yeah. It was over. I was like, I really like this one. Did you say you watched it with Jack?
Partly.
Oh, she couldn't do it.
She started it with me and then left for a little while when it was getting grosser, and then came back at the tail end.
Oh, okay.
And I kept looking over. This isn't gonna fly on an audio format, but I kept looking over, and she was just going.
Yeah.
She set her hand over her face,
because when he goes
kind of looking, kind of not looking.
Yeah, when he goes full fly and she tears his jaw off.
Oh, it was awful.
Yeah, it
Man,
was.
how do they do any of that stuff? It's amazing.
It's so impressive.
Yeah.
It's so impressive. It's one of these things that, like, I understand why we've gone to CG for everything.
Yeah, but
I'm not going to be the person who's like, oh, we should always do whatever. There's something so visceral about the effects in this movie.
Yeah, I mean,
it is so unsettling, more so than any. You could get the biggest budget special effects creature feature that you could ever possibly make, and I don't think it would be as viscerally unsettling as The Fly is in this movie.
To me, CGI should either be the whole movie, like in like Toy Story or a video game or something like that, or it should be to fill in gaps. Do you know what I mean? Like it should just be there to
paintbrush on the setting that is physically built.
Like make it so that when you look out the window, you see 1930s city skyline, but like that's
Zodiac.
What it's doing. Yes,
Zodiac is a great example because you don't think of that as being really effects driven, but all based the whole background to make it look like the 70s.
Yeah.
It's all CG.
And it works because you're not looking at it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And when you look at it later, you're like, oh, I see that it's all CGI. But, and that's why, again, you can still watch Jurassic Park and be like, this looks awesome.
It's not all CGI. It's physical stuff that is enhanced with CGI. So
or they use CGI for the velociraptors when it's in a wide shot in the background, but then when we go in on its face, it's a puppet.
Now, I will say, I do have a better appreciation for, one, the work that goes into CGI,
Oh yeah,
and two, like good
Mhm.
CGI from that Corridor Crew YouTube channel,
of course.
Yeah.
because they'll put up stuff and they'll show like, hey, this is, this studio either didn't have the budget, or here's the story behind why this looks as bad as it does. And then they go and like, they have a few videos where they like remake it. And I know that's not
Yeah.
what you guys are saying. I'm just
yeah,
saying,
yeah,
like,
yeah. No. No, it needs to be
it's
said.
given me more of an appreciation for like, I am fine with it when it's there and it's the whole thing.
Yeah.
If it's like done, there are things you can do to hide the parts that look bad. No, we say all this, like we were just talking about The Host and how like they went full blunt broad daylight,
You're right.
and it didn't look great in a 2024 lens, and we were still like, yeah, no, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, so the reason why I come down really hard on CGI is not because of the people, the individual artists making it. It's because I know that the reason why it's leaned on so much is because the people working in visual effects don't have a union in the same way people working on the movies do. So when you're working on a movie, there's a lot of rules you have to follow for good reason, because people used to get taken advantage of. You can't work so long. You have to this many breaks, et cetera, et cetera. Safety regulations. But if you're working CGI, you're sitting at a computer. It's basically a temp job, and because movies are what they are, and it's a business where it's considered a privilege to even be working on a movie, according to these producers. They take absolute advantage of and crunch, and these people do like 12 hours, and they're like, and they're given impossible deadlines. And so when I'm angry at CGI, I'm not saying like, oh, it's because these artists aren't artists. It's more like, these terrible like producers are like, oh, we'll fix it in post, which is, as somebody who works in the visual arts, on a very, 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 very small scale, fix it in post is the death knell of a good project. Do you know what I mean?
Post is nothing.
Well, if you say I'm fixing it in post, it means like, oh, I'm resigning to this being complete shit. You know what I mean?
I don't care about this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
and absolutely, yeah. It's like, it's not on the artists making it. It's like not recognizing, it's above them not recognizing the skill and artistry, but also like time commitment, but also it isn't just a magic fix 'em up.
Yeah.
But long story short, the visual effects in this movie, man,
are really good.
Damn, they're good. The transformation. So Wikipedia, if you're listening and you have watched it, Wikipedia has a cool, like, it's very small, so it's like not even a very good quality picture, but they have like a picture of like 8 sort of distinct stages of his transformation.
Oh yeah.
And it's so great that it isn't, a lower budget movie or a cheaper movie that didn't put the sort of effort in the right places, maybe. Or I guess it doesn't even really matter to compare. What I like that they've done in this, there are sort of 8 distinctly different makeup and prosthetics that they put on Jeff Goldblum, where you see this sort of gradual, disgusting transformation where, like, you see the first one and he's just kind of got like spots on his face.
Yeah, he's got
and it looks
some
like he's
acne.
been eating an insane amount of sugar.
Yeah.
He's got like zits and like blemishes and stuff. And then it just slowly gets worse, but every single stage you're like, oh, that's so gross. And then by the time they're about to reveal the next stage, you've kind of gotten used to it.
Yeah, right.
So it is just as gross to get to the next stage every single time until the last one. And it is so unbelievably horrific at the end. And it is so sad because at the end of the movie, it's Brundle, it's Ronnie and Stathis in Brundle's lab. And she's ripped his Brundle's jaw off, so he turns fully into like a giant humanoid-ish fly.
More fly than human.
He's trying to put both of them into pods to transfer, to like get more human DNA into
in the mix,
whatever comes out, and it's going to be all 3 of them together, and it's going to be really gross and weird. But Stathis comes and saves the day. He breaks the connection between the pods. So Brundle, shifts and like teleports and mashes himself together with the pod itself, and he comes out and he's got like pieces of the pod coming out of him, and he's like sloughing on the ground and like everything's an absolute mess. And then she goes to shoot him and she can't do it. And then he grabs the gun and like puts it to his head. And it's just this like, he's still in there somewhere. And he finally realized like, this is bad. It's gone too far. I need this to end. It's awful. And it is just this unbelievably human moment between a 1/3 man, 1/3 fly, 1/3 teleport pod. And our main character, Ronnie.
Yeah.
And then she blasts him and he dies. And that's the end of the movie. And here's what I'm proposing.
Okay.
I want a creature feature that starts after the creature and is actually just like a drama about
picking up the pieces.
Picking up the pieces of the... I'm so intrigued by what happens to her after this because it's not good. You can't get out of this. You can.
Well,
I don't know if you can get through
so.
this. Is there the Fly? Is it a direct sequel?
No, it's not. Well, it is a direct sequel, but it's a number of years later because the tagline is like father, like son.
Oh.
So, but
okay.
But yeah,
that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Like I've always thought that would be an interesting piece to do. Is I
think you're yeah. I feel like movies have done something similar in the terms of in the like when they've done like it's like they're in the courtroom or like something like that where they're like, all right, tell me what happened. Do you know what I mean?
Bits of it with in like the MCU after the blip.
Right.
They had bits of it in some of the shows where like you got to see the sheer devastation and the toll that it took on real people. And to me, that just sounds so interesting to see. Give me a short of Ronnie after this trying to piece together her life.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of that like behind the scenes sort of stuff is like, I don't know, there's that really not that great show, Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And there was a moment where the whole show changed, but back it was like after like a movie would come out and the episode after the movie came out would be them picking up the pieces of all the stuff that happened. And that was kind of fun. Like, so like, like after the Thor movie where it's like in London, like the main characters were in like the same building as them and like picking up all the stuff that they destroyed. And that was like, it was like kind of fun because like, it felt like it made the world feel very lived in. These are the small details that made me like fall in love with the MCU at the beginning, like right out of the gate, where I was just like, this is cool. But no, that'd be interesting. Like a whole movie where it's just like I think it would be interesting because like I've seen the whole like we're in like an official sort of like deposition or something like that, and we're piecing together the events that just happened through flashbacks. But it would be neat to just see like sort of like a Pulp Fiction style, like the one scene where after they actually shoot that guy's head off in Pulp Fiction, like after this, where they're just like, okay, we just blew up the monster, all right, and there's who do we call? What do we do? Like I think that would be an interesting sort of like, how do we get past this? Now that we're alive and the adrenaline is going away, you're bleeding out, that we need to fix. That kind of stuff.
I mean, I think that, gosh, I feel like something has addressed this where, you have a movie where you'll have the couple who survive this horrible ordeal and they just kiss at the end and that's the end of the movie and there's never anything else. It's like, most of the time they don't actually end up together because all that trauma
that is one of my least favorite tropes is the kiss at the end of a disaster. It bothers me so much.
It's every Indiana Jones is like, they're always like, oh, and they're together, but then in the next movie they're nowhere to be seen. So
trauma got to them.
It's almost like they forged a relationship based on fear and,
But the ending with him putting the shotgun to his head is definitely, I think if it didn't have that, it wouldn't hit home quite as well. Yeah. Because if it's just her shooting him, it's like, okay, well, he's truly a monster now and she had to get rid of him. Like, no, he was still there.
there's always a piece throughout all of this.
Yeah.
There is always a piece of him left, at least. There's always a bit of human still in Brundlefly, and it is so. God, guys.
Yeah, I mean, he really only truly turns monstrous at the very, very end when he's like, I know how I'll save us, and the you, me, and the baby we'll all go into the machine, and out will pop one being, which will be all three of us together forever. And even that
is like a very misguided
sense
human
of like
logic.
But you gotta admit, when he melts Stathis's limbs, oh my god!
Oh, that was rough.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, and I liked his acting when he was like being basically dissolved. Like it wasn't like this like straight up screaming. It was like very much like a guy who's like on the verge of passing out.
Yeah.
And just like
He's
in
just
total
in shock
and like to me it felt like a very real reaction. We was just kind of going like, you know, and I'm not like just like screaming and going, my hand, oh no,
no, my hand has been acided.
No. It was I was like and you were so up close to both the characters' faces during that. I was like, I hate this. I hate watching this. I hate like having the realization that his life is now forever altered because he got barfed on by a fly man. And it makes me profoundly sad thinking about people who lose limbs and things like that because I don't like that thought. And I just didn't like sitting in that world for even 1 second, which made me go, this movie's great.
Yeah. Oh, Craig, what were you going to say? You got a thing?
No, I don't have anything. I was going to move on to something else before we ended, so just go ahead with your thoughts.
Wait, were you going to ask us what animal we would want to be horrifically transformed into?
I mean, I can ask that.
Because that was my question.
Oh, man.
Was if you had to go through this process, what animal would you have wanted in the telepod with you?
Yeah, I think I'd want a healthier version of me. Is that an answer?
Good. Yeah.
You got to find that.
I know who it is. It's my brother, my little brother. I'll just fuse with him. No, I don't know. My first thought was kangaroo, so I could finally
That's what I
live
thought
out
too.
my Warriors of Virtue fantasy.
That's buck wild, you guys.
Uh-oh. We're all going to be human kangaroo hybrids.
Will for Craig and my best friend Craig for Will now. I'm nothing now. You guys picked the same animal to be horrifically transformed into. What do I have?
Kangaroos are pretty cool, you know? Yeah. They're pretty buff too, you know.
They're like a ripped stand-up deer.
They are. No, a rabbit or something. Yeah, they're just like. Yeah. Like, have you ever seen like videos of them like getting up and close to like people? You're just like, you're like the beefiest, terrifying rabbit I've ever seen.
Something about you doesn't look right.
Yeah.
You look like somebody designed you.
Yeah. What about you, Phil?
Not like nature designed you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was talking to Jack about it earlier, and I said dog. Okay. Because, like, I'm trying to think of, like, dogs don't make weird slime. Dogs
make plenty of weird slime.
Essentially the same way we do.
Okay.
Like, I'm trying to think of, like, the things that happen to Seth in this movie.
Right.
Wouldn't happen with a dog.
You'd be mostly okay with any form of mammal in terms of, like...
Yeah.
You know, because we got the same number of legs and eyeballs and teeth.
But, like...
You know.
Here's the thing, though. That's me trying to game the system.
Right.
And maybe I shouldn't game the system and I should go with my heart, which is a bird of some sort. Ooh, cassowary.
Ooh, wow.
Wow. What an awful answer.
They're really cool.
I know, but like a cassowary human hybrid.
Also very dangerous.
A cassowary with the intelligence of a Phil.
Yeah, that's called a Utah
dumb
raptor.
Cassowary.
That's a Utah raptor. Like every time I go to the Toledo Zoo, I'm like, Jack, do you want to see the closest thing you'll ever see to a real life dinosaur?
Yeah,
cassowary. And he's always like, what, that? I'm like, look at its feet. And he's like, whoa, dinosaur feet.
Also, dinosaurs probably, at least some of them, had feathers or other weird shit on their body.
They certainly had feathers. There's like proof of it now. The later aged or the younger ones. I don't know how you would say it. The ones that were closer to our time,
closer to us.
Yeah, all basically had some form of
feathers or there's I think I talked about it at one point. There's a dinosaur special that does like a bunch of like sort of theoretical versions where they have like a long neck dinosaur that's got like weird pods up its neck, because it's like we wouldn't see those in the fossil record. They would have all so like it they could have these weird, not appendages, but weird like accessories.
Yeah, right, yeah.
They're like, that's just cool. Science, man.
There were very few like, animals that are just like their body bones. Yeah, skin on bones. There's always like just something weird, especially in the bird realm. Birds have so much extra bizarre nonsense. So
yeah.
Anywho,
so I did go back and watch the original The Fly from the 50s.
I was going to ask you if you had.
And
they're both based on a story, but this one's only loosely based.
Yeah, so the short story and the 50s movie are identical.
Okay.
I was going to go try and find a copy of it, but you can't find it for free anywhere because, copyright or something stupid like that. So, but I read the summary and I'm like, this is just the movie all over again. So that's why I say it's, they really just took the extremely basic outline of man turns himself into a fly man with a teleporter, and that's it. Because the original movie is set up more like a murder mystery. Because it starts with a woman calling her, I think it was her brother-in-law, and saying that she killed her husband, which is his brother. And she had smashed his head and his arm in a like a metal press. So already you're like,
all been there, right?
This is this is pretty crazy already. That's how the story starts, and then they're trying to figure out what happened because she's being very nonchalant about the whole thing. Like, oh, why did you kill your husband? He's like, oh, I can't tell you that. And so she's being kind of coy, but the whole time she's trying to find this, what she calls a white-headed fly. And nobody can figure out why she's obsessed with trying to find these flies. But finally she tells the police inspector and her brother-in-law what actually happened. Because the brother-in-law lies and tells her that he found the white-headed fly. And so, it goes back into a flashback where it's her husband built the teleporter, and first he tries it on a cat, their family cat, and instead of it like coming out wrong, it just disappears, and you can hear the cat. It like got split into millions of atoms, and it's just like floating in space. So that part's a little creepy.
That's kind of rad, though.
It's kind of rad. I like that part of it. And then they don't show the actual him transporting himself. Just all of a sudden, the wife goes to visit him at his lab, and then he slips a paper under the door that says, I can't talk.
I'm a fly. Don't come in.
Yeah, don't. Basically, just like something is wrong, horribly wrong. I need you to trust
bring me sugar water.
Yeah. So she eventually goes in, and he's got his head covered up completely, and his hand in his pocket. And so she doesn't know what's happened to him this whole time. And eventually he's like, oh, just will put me through again. And maybe it'll just like resolve itself. Because the computer got confused. Basically the same thing that happened in the other one. So, and that doesn't work. And so she thinks it works though. She's like, oh, surely. Goes right up to him, takes off the cloth, and sees that he has a giant fly head and a fly hand. And so, very different. And then when he's like, oh, if we find the other half of me, which is on the fly itself, the little fly, the white-headed fly, which is a fly body with a like top torso of a man on it. So if you find that, we put it into the transporter with me, maybe it'll unlink us. But
that logic doesn't track for me.
I know. And so they're not able to find it. It escapes the house, and so he loses hope, and then he tells her to crush him underneath the press with his anything that's the fly part crushed, so nobody will, discover how he did. He destroys all his science stuff. Make sure nobody else can do it again. And so that's basically the whole thing. And then the most memorable part of the whole movie, and that's the part most people know, is the ending where they do end up finding the white-headed fly at the end. And it's stuck in a spider's web. And you can hear in the background, "Help me! Help me!" And you get real close, and it's just this bad effect of this guy going, "Spider, help me!"
That's so dumb.
So that is the version I've seen more parodied, is that, instantly when you do the teleporting, you turn into the fly. I think it was a lot more novel for them, because that's what was the original idea with the remake, is that they were going to do the same thing, where he just turns right into the fly.
Right.
And Cronenberg decided it was better to do it as a gradual thing. Somebody losing their sense of self and their own, control over themselves.
Because I feel like what's going to happen in this movie. You know what I mean? Yeah. Especially if you've heard of the original. So when he first goes through, and he's gone through with a fly, you're like, oh, he's gonna come out monstrous. You know what I mean? Your thought is that he'll come out half fly, and he comes out normal. And you're just like, oh, I guess, well, what does this mean? And it sort of like builds up that sense of like dread, because you, as the audience, know something is probably going to go wrong.
Yeah. So it's fine. It's schlocky 50s stuff that you would expect. So I don't think anyone should go out of their way. But my wife is terrified of the movie because she saw it when she was like 6.
Ooh.
Yep.
And so I can't
Doesn't
even
matter how cheesy a movie is if
I know.
you're young.
I can't even
fuck you right up.
I keep forgetting that she gets affected by it, and anytime I go, "Help me!"
Oh no.
She gets really mad at me. So
the real villain is Craig.
Always has
for
been.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. The whole
all right.
time.
So
Guys.
Phil, if you were to give this a rating out of 5, what would you give this?
Oh my gosh. So I think everyone knows that I'm going to give it a specific number, and that number is 5 out of 5 deep penetrating dives into the plasma pool.
That speech is so
Unhinged.
insane.
I wrote down the whole thing. Well, okay, I copied it from the quote section of IMDb. It's such a good, unhinged, batshit crazy speech delivered so well. It's so good. Drink deep or taste not the plasma spring. There's so much weird shit about penetration in there too.
Oh yeah.
This movie was fucking great. I love this movie. This is going up there in the brackets for me. This was very good. This was exactly what I like about science fiction.
Yeah. I'm gonna jump off that, so I'll go next. So I'm gonna give this movie 5. Have you ever heard of insect politics? Out of 5.
Yeah.
So like he has this moment where he sort of realizes that Gina Davis probably isn't going to come back, and instead of just saying like, "Go, I'll hurt you the next time you come here," he just does the most Jeff Goldblum thing. And he's turning into a fly. And he's like, have you ever heard of insect politics? Insects don't have politics. They're very brutal. And he's basically saying like, insects don't compromise. And so I'm worried that I will be somebody who won't compromise and I will just hurt you. So you can never, but like the way he does it is so human. And also like, I was like, that's probably what I would say to Caitlin, because that's how I talk to Caitlin sometimes. Instead of going like, I'm going to tell you how I feel. No, I'm not going to tell you how I feel. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come up with a simile and a metaphor and talk for 20 minutes when all I'm really trying to say is it sort of hurt my feelings when you mentioned this one thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I really liked it.
Are we the same person?
Yeah, maybe we. Yeah, maybe.
Hey. Oh man. All right, Craig. What are you feeling?
5 out of 5. The magic word: cheeseburgers.
Cheeseburger. Listen, honestly, if you invite me out to eat a cheeseburger, I'll go with you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care who you are. I don't care what you want to talk to me about.
Yeah.
That is a magic word for me. I
It's true.
love a good cheeseburger date. For sure. That would get me to talk to any weird science guy.
Yep. Yeah.
So if anyone listening needs to go tell me about their science, just invite me for a cheeseburger. I'm in.
Good
But
idea.
also, this is in our Best Picture Club, which I definitely expected as I watched it. I was like, this movie is perfect. This movie is so good. There is a reason this movie is everywhere.
And talked about still. Yeah.
And talked about still. Everyone should go watch this movie. This is absolutely a must watch, I feel like.
Do we have a lot of 5 out of 5s this year? It seems like we do.
We have a lot this year, I feel like. We've watched a lot of good ones. I think we've also hit like a stride of like vibing on movies.
Well,
but
yeah. Well, I think since we've done we've moved away from the theming months, because like the theming months, what would happen is you would pick a theme, and because you were in that theme, there was always going to be like at least 2 or 3 stinkers. You know what I mean? Because that's just how it's going to go.
I mean, I didn't pick any of them, but I understand what you mean.
Of course. And I think now, like, because when I'm picking movies that I just like want to either rewatch or I know they're good and they're just a blind spot in my movie watching experience. So, yeah, I think we have been doing a lot more 5 out of 5s, but I think we've also just been doing a lot of good movies as well. You know,
our tastes are good.
So next week we're gonna have a special guest. My brother Mike has agreed to come along, and
I'm so excited.
Yeah, and the movie he has decided to watch, and I have no idea why this was his pick. So because he's in London right now, we're gonna watch Fern Gully.
Oh
yes, yes,
really.
I have been wanting to rewatch this for a very long time.
Really.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Yeah. All I remember about this movie is that Avatar basically ripped off of it, and Tim Curry's the best. And my dad hated this movie because it was too liberal.
My mom's side of the family also hated this movie because it was too liberal.
Yeah. Turns out
that's part of why I want to rewatch it.
Yeah, right. And by too liberal, it's just saying like don't cut down too many trees. And that's too liberal. Yeah. This is the fight we've been in. Oh my God. Nobody learned anything from Cat and Planet. I can't believe it. What is so funny is like watching movies from like the 80s and they're talking about like how we need to be better to the environment. And like all this stuff that we're still saying, I'm like, oh, so nobody has learned a single thing in all this time? Anywho. All right, so that's going to be next week.
Nice.
Hopefully.
That's exciting.
Thank you for liking and subscribing to the podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. If you want to, just tell us what human hybrid, animal hybrid that you'd want to be.
Please get in the comments with that. That's all I want in my life.
This episode is brought to you by Brad Barr. So Brad, who I've been thinking a lot about lately because he just had surgery today, but it went well. He just needs to poop. And by the time this comes out, I'm sure he's already pooped. Yeah. Should I have said all that? Doesn't matter.
I really hope that you get a text.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, well, I told me to keep me posted on Poopgate. Brad has Crohn's disease, so his intestines are a nightmare. Anywho, just for context, if you want me to talk about your bowel movements on this podcast and want to help support us, consider becoming a patron on patreon.com/mumbleandshrug.
I feel like I have tried to talk about bowel movements on this show,
Yeah.
and you have refused it.
Yeah.
So to hear you so nonchalantly talk about someone else's,
I
it is a little hurtful.
okay. I
So-
feel like the stakes of this poop conversations are slightly different, considering the.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Also, I don't know if this is going to help or really hurt our subscriber base, because you just basically promise
A little
that
of both.
whoever gets their shout out you will also talk about their bowel movements.
Dude, I will talk about anybody's bowel movement who is a Patreon. A patron. If you're willing to give us money, I will talk about whatever you
Oh, yeah,
want. I'll do whatever you want.
I'll debase myself.
Yeah, I'm not.
Yeah, I have no shame.
No, not even a little bit. Sell out
Um,
immediately. That's me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll sell out before I even am there.
Yeah.
If you like what you heard, consider leaving a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify. That's all for this episode. I'm Phil Kessel.
I'm Will Chotis.
And I'm Craig Norland.
Oh my God, please go watch this movie. It's good.
Brought to you by Mumble and Shrug Productions.